everyone. This is Diane Rasmussen with UK Column. I'm really happy to be here today talking with Brent Holloway and Chris Allen from Cumbria Action. I had the pleasure of meeting them fairly recently when I went to one of their rallies and spoke about digital ID and Agenda 2030 and all of the really important issues facing us right now in this country and around the world. So Chris and Brent, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to just have you maybe introduce a little bit about yourselves and about Cumbria Action. So whoever would like to go first, I'm happy to hear from you. Thanks.
I suppose I should start. I created the group in early or to early September, and having looked around online, wanting to get involved in local activism, primarily having seen and witnessed what's happened low down the country, the likes of Epping, and the successes that they'd had there, just simply by having a calm, peaceful approach to resisting the regime as it was. I looked around my local area to see if there was anything going on that I could get involved in, and having come up fairly dry, or some of the groups weren't necessarily on message with what I believed in, I just thought, well, I'll make my own, and not really thinking it was going to explode in the way that it did. It really took off.
What do you think is the thing that got it to go off so quickly?
I think there are a huge section of our society that have gone unheard and unnoticed for the longest time. I'm sure we're all aware in every circle we move in, there's a lot of people that lean in and whisper when they talk about the issues of today, and giving people that platform to voice it and a direction to go in has been extremely positive. People have latched onto it really quite enthusiastically, because they suddenly have a voice, and we have a direct line to the people in local power. Whereas before, people are emailing and voting and seemingly being ignored. But with Cumbria Action and that message and the unifier of having a central area for people to assemble and voice those opinions has been a real asset to the county, in my opinion.
That was my impression when I was there with you a few weeks ago, that there were a lot of people really frustrated and impatient with things and really wanted their voices heard. And I was actually, I was really happy with how positive the whole thing felt personally. I don't know if it's been that way for everything that you've done so far, but just that sense of community and that sense of I'm not alone. I'm not the only crazy one thinking these things or feeling this way. I think it was really good to feel that for me personally.
They're all of a similar mind. Oh, no. And like you say, coming out of the woodwork, people sort of do the gopher thing and pop their heads above the ground and notice actually there's another 10,000 gophers out here in this field. And that's a real positive message.
I think my favorite part of the day was seeing that group of teenage boys giving each other a group hug when I was there. It's great to see young people. It was great. It was just really we're reaching people. If we're reaching teenage boys, we're reaching some people. So Brent, how did you get involved in the group?
I've been involved in activism for 15 years or so, or more. It's been a long time. And after the Manchester Arena bombings, I ran a group called Standing for Britain. We did a lot of protests against all forms of terrorism, marched with the Veterans Against Terrorism and the Football Lads Alliance and things. And then during the whole COVID nonsense, during the lockdowns, I've organised local meetups in Cumbria, getting people together when everyone else was isolating. I've helped my best mate Tim to set up the UK's first Awake festival, Carry On Camping. And from that, a lot of other festivals springboarded from that. And we purposely put on our first festival to bring people together. We purposely put it on during lockdown because we've never complied with this sort of thing. And I've actually got a track record of having a small victory against the medical establishment and basically reclaiming my bodily autonomy. And then more recently, I've seen Chris's group, originally Carlisle Action, that then formed Cumbria Action, and wanted to get involved. I liked what he did and what he stood for. So I've got involved, and we've already had a couple of great demonstrations with lots more in the pipeline as well.
So you've been quite active for a while. Was 2020 what woke you up, or were you active before that?
I've seen for a good number of years, seen what's happening to this country and the way things are going. And then it was after the Manchester Arena bombings, that's when I ran a group called Standing for Britain. And over a good number of years, we did various protests and demonstrations, supported other groups, and we did a lot in terms of activism from that. So it started with that group against all forms of terrorism, and I've kind of always been awake since then. I always like to question things. So when the start of news reports came out surrounding COVID, my first reaction was to actually look into it myself, look at the research and the data, even though in the beginning it was early stages, and stories just didn't quite add up. Things from, for example, the false reporting using things like the PCR test, which doesn't show you what actually you're sick with. And just the fact that if somebody dies within 28 days of a COVID test, it goes down as a COVID test. So very quickly realised something was a bit fishy. And I also have a little bit, not so much a problem with authority, but when the government tells me I can't go out, I have to stay in my house, I actually went out more during the lockdowns than I did previously because I wasn't going to stay inside.
It was good to be out during that time because there wasn't any traffic. I had some some nice car rides and things during that period because you weren't fighting anybody for space on the roads. It was great. Yeah, I mean that's great to hear that you've been involved for so long, and it's the fact that you're still here doing the work is what is really, to me, inspirational about this, because I think something that we've seen, I guess, in the past couple of years, sort of like that people think that we're back to normal, but of course you both know that we're not, and that it's actually getting more pressure on us now, I think, because they're panicking and they're not where they want to be. And this is why we have to keep working. And this is one of the things that I would like us to talk about. And because what we're trying to do is to get people to realize that we can all do something, which is why I was really, really anxious to talk to you, because you're doing something local in your community. And this is what we think we need to be doing around the country. So it's great to hear that you've been involved for so long and that you're still doing it. I guess I'd like to ask you, because you've been doing this for so long, and you were organizing lockdown protests, and so what do you see in the differences in the sort of the responses that you get and the participation that you get if you compare 2020 and 2025? Do you think there's a difference in the people that are joining you?
I think there's a massive difference. The first big difference is the numbers. Whether you look to social media, for example, when when any time a news story came out around COVID and the lockdowns, the majority of all the feeds and everything that was getting talked about on social media was in support of the whole fake pandemic. And it was a case of the few people that would comment asking questions would be shut down straight away. But I've found that on social media recently, it's kind of flipped on its head. So the most people that kind of talk on these sort of stories actually point out all the false reporting and are actually awake to COVID and the lockdowns and things. And then even with demonstrations and seeing numbers increase, I've seen less people wearing masks, and just in general, I think that people are fed up with the lockdowns. People can see how ridiculous it was, and as a positive thing, I think that even though that with their agenda, they're going to keep pushing these sorts of things. There may in the future be other pandemics and lockdowns and things, but people are wise to it now. People are fed up with it. So I don't think in any regard they're going to have the same sort of effect as they did previously. And also, for example, going through organising these lockdown protests and then helping my friend with these carry-on camping festivals kind of brought people together. So even though a lot of friends and family kind of pushed me aside kind of from my views on speaking out against COVID, I've gained so much more friends through these meetups and these festivals. So there's actually a real community that has come together through that. And one thing I've found through this is that nobody needs to feel alone anymore. So even if they do in the future have more lockdowns, more restrictions, things like that, I think there's now like a really good grassroots community of people that will support each other and not comply with this nonsense. So it's really good to see this sort of community coming together.
I think what I'm seeing is that even though there are people who think, oh, we're back to normal, we don't have to keep fighting, what I do see, and this is just me sort of reading, Facebook comments on, all of the posts recently saying, oh, it's time to line up for your winter jabs, get your boosters now. and you see all the comments, people are like, no, I'm not doing it. It's ridiculous. I'm not doing it. But they keep trying to push down on people saying, you've got to get your COVID booster. You've got to get your flu booster. And I just see it's a very different response to what I used to see back, 2021 when everyone was lining up for it all. And I think, unfortunately, people have learned the hard way. They've lost people they loved because they've passed away from, the mRNA side effects. They've lost family members that didn't agree with them. They've lost friends. But I think, as you've said, though, the positive side of that is that we've all had to create new relationships with new people, and I think in some cases, because we found people that are maybe more like-minded than what we had in our lives previously, that some of those relationships, I think for some people, are more meaningful and based on a common understanding and a way of seeing the world, and that we are, I think, creating community that maybe we didn't have previously. And even though it's been sad that we've all lost people, whether it's just through ending relationships, which I hear about constantly, or people who have sadly passed and will never be with us again, what we have to do, I think, is rebuild and move forward. And we have great opportunities to do that. We just have to get out and do it. And so going back to you, Chris, if we're thinking locally, which is where I think that's where a lot of this needs to lie, is locally. Because we can't go out and defeat the UN's agenda single-handedly. So we have to start locally. And what I've been saying for a while is we branch out. So we start in Cumbria, or we start, for me, here in County Durham, or we start wherever we are. And then we join together, but we have to be strong locally. So I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about when you started what was Carlisle Action, and kind of just take us through the process of, what you've done and what others who have helping you Maxine and the others that are working with you, like how did this grow so quickly? It was obviously a very grassroots organic movement, but how did this actually work for you?
It absolutely grew like wildfire. I created the group on like a Wednesday afternoon, and before I'd really had chance to kind of go back and look at it again, I had 300 followers, and I thought, "Crikey, that was fast." And then by close of play of the first week, we had 1,000. And I kind of thought, this is mad. I'm just some bloke who's noticed there's an issue. I mean, I'm not alone in that, clearly. And that's literally all it took, was just stepping out, creating that space. And people are clamoring for that voice and for that understanding, and for that, because you know what it's like when you post online. Normally, the only people who will contact you back are people who want to give you grief. You know, people who are ultra left wing, people who are calling you a Nazi, a bigot, or whatever. If you just air a perfectly rational, normal view, normally you get shot down. But having a positive space where everybody is of a similar mind, we all have differences of opinion, of course, and that's remarkably healthy and normal. We shouldn't all be automatons thinking the same thing. But having that network and that growing confidence for others to see has spread it to huge numbers. It's remarkably difficult to motivate people to do most things, because very much like how they've engineered things, people are too busy working and trying to survive and raise their families. People haven't really got the time to put in to stand on street corners and, you know, do email letter writing campaigns to the MP. People are just too busy trying to survive the week. So having that space locally where we can concentrate on local matters has been a godsend for the group, the movement as a whole, and more importantly, the local people who, like I said earlier, have gone unnoticed, unheard, and you know, it's a pleasure to see people come together.
I know that we all have issues that some are all over the country, all over the world, honestly, based on globalist agendas and so on. But then we have local issues, which are equally as important, because that's when we see how they're putting the agenda into place. And I know that for you in Cumbria, and I'd like to hear you talk about this, that there's been the sort of what was the City of Sanctuary and now the Council of Sanctuary. And I know that's been a very recent thing for you. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
We became aware of it. We have certain whistleblowers and people who are aware of the local political machine, who've advised us about various things that are coming our way. They have announced this City of Sanctuary idea in puff pieces in the local press, but these are always puff pieces where they switch off the comments, of course, and people don't really have their say or the opportunity to oppose it. Now, we were made aware that they were having a meeting last week in where they were going to basically just rubber stamp this. And from listening to some of the media pieces about our attendance and our protest there, these meetings normally go completely unattended, completely unseen and unheard, and they were remarkably surprised to see 50 of our members arrive to oppose the bill. They were entirely unprepared for the fact that the population don't want this and are willing to stand up and say no. They are so used to just rubber stamping everything that they wish. Now, these people don't even read the bills, I'm sure. I'm sure they just think, well, that sounds like a lovely thing to do, so we'll just approve it. Well, they never really appear to think about the negative impacts on the local population that is already strained. Britain as a whole is a welcoming people, and Cumbria especially. Our economy is based in many ways on tourism to the local area, to the beautiful Lake District and the various other things that we've got to offer. So we're a very welcoming and open community as it is. We're not against strangers or other people coming to visit here and enjoy what we've got to offer. But at the same time, there are people that can't afford to live, and the people that have been waiting 18 months for a dental appointment, and there's people that are finding the same struggles that people across the country are feeling. And I think just to simply rubber stamp a new policy which invites whoever they wish to come and join and live here, I think without any real oversight or fact finding is reckless in the short term, but psychotic in the long term. The infrastructure here is already at breaking point as it is, and I just think it's about time that these people heard the no from the population, which is out there screaming it no and saying no, and finally they appear to be being heard for once.
Could you explain a little bit for people who might not be aware of what the sanctuary means? Because it does sound very nice, but it's not exactly what it sounds like. So if you could maybe explain that a bit. Yeah.
It sounds absolutely delightful. I mean, if we were a huge success and the nation had a surplus, then of course, it's a beautiful thing. Basically, the policy says we will open our city and our hearts, of course, to anybody that wants to come here, anybody that needs a leg up, and anybody that needs help, and that includes migrants, both legal and illegal. That includes, as they say, victims of domestic violence. I'm not sure how that factors in. I think it was just more to kind of sweeten the deal publicly. Children who need fostering, all of the rest of it. Now, we all know that that's just a smokescreen, and what they actually mean is it's just more migrant people. Because, yeah, fair enough, we might be able to help a couple of domestic violence survivors, but this isn't a city where we don't actually have a dedicated women's refuge. Well, that would certainly be a good place to start rather than just opening the doors. Perhaps if that's the focus and we want to look after victims of domestic violence and families in trauma and children, then perhaps have dedicated services for them rather than just thinking, oh, we'll just add them to the pyre and hopefully nothing negative will come from it. Basically, what they want is just to appear lovely and kind to the rest of the nation. And, that's nice in peacetime. But we are in a position where people are already struggling on a huge scale. So perhaps it's not really the focus of your local councillor considering opening the doors to the entire third world. Perhaps we should open our doors to our local people first.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And as someone who moved to this country, was actually asked to come here to teach your children in universities. That was over 10 years ago. But I also know that the process that I went through was very, very different from what I'm seeing with those who are coming in. I paid a lot of money in visa fees over the years to be here legally, had to meet certain criteria, background checks, all of the application process. It was a points-based system where you got points by speaking English as a native language. I had a doctorate. I was going to be making a certain salary. I had a certain amount of money to support myself to get over here. It was a very intense process. And I now have permanent settled status here. And I'm not complaining at all about what I went through, because I think it's completely fair that if you move to another country, you have to meet the regulations and do what is expected of you.
And we have that in common. My wife is a Philippine national, and she went through this exact process that you just described. She now works for the NHS at the infirmary, and it's exactly the same process. I personally, and our group, is not anti-migrant. We're anti-mass immigration, where it's literally to the rafters, as many people as we can fit. Selective migration is key because we take the talents from across the world and we can make what we have better. So it would be madness to deny the skills and talent of the world. If they want to come here, then snap them up, take them, because it's an advantage to all of us. That's absolutely key. So I'm fully aware of the difficult nature of actually getting here when you've got something to offer. It's a bizarre thing that you can come here and you can offer no skills and just want to live on benefits and seem to be greenlit and rubber stamped all the way home. But when you've actually got some real skills, it's an uphill battle. It makes no sense.
And it's a two-tier system, if you ask me. We talk about two-tier Kier as kind of this nickname that some people have for him, but it is a different system for different people for being here for different reasons. And one of the things I just saw yesterday in the news was Rachel Reeves is now announcing, I don't remember the exact details, but she's announcing benefits for second wives for people in polygamous marriages. Now, we know that's not British culture. It's not Christian culture. And I actually thought about how I know about a lot of stories from people who come to me, because obviously in my position, I hear a lot of stories from a lot of people and the struggles that they're facing. And this, if more people knew about this, the people that are struggling for basic services and for people that have, needed a council house for years and can't get one, even though they live in the city they were born in. And now we're seeing this coming in. It's just, to me, it's quite insulting personally just to see this, and I'm sure that there will be more outrage if this gets out more. But that these are the things that we're actually facing. When I talk to people who say, that people who are getting immediate benefits when they're coming in from another country. I've talked to a taxi driver once who was telling me he drives people to council houses in his town, whereas his daughter can't get one and she's needed one for years. So these are the things we have to look at when we're looking at limited resources. And I came here to add to your country, not to take from it. And I think most of us do come here with that intention, that come here for, different reasons other than what's happening. And so the migration policy is very strange. And we could get into larger discussions, but we're not here to talk about that today behind maybe what's going on with that. But it is quite concerning. I guess, back to Brent again. Have you seen over these last several years that you've been doing this, have you seen changes in not just numbers of people, but are people just generally getting tired and fed up and don't want to contribute anymore? Is that something that you're seeing? Are you seeing that maybe are we turning a corner now, like with this whole digital ID thing? Is there like kind of ups and downs, I guess, in interest and participation is what I'm trying to figure out now, because it feels like we're ramping up again after the rage of 2020. It feels like people are starting to come back. But have you seen, because you've been doing this longer than I have you seen a pattern in that? Things that get people out and active and then people just retreat? Or is there any sort of response to things?
There has been some changes over the years, but things like mass migration and all the side effects that come with that, from increased crime from undocumented migrants that are coming in, from the hard to get doctor's appointments and things like that. These things have been around for a number of years. Back when I was sort of marching with Standing for Britain, these things were still present, and as I said, Standing for Britain was set up after the Manchester Arena bombings, and so these things have happened for a long time, but there does seem to be, we're getting to kind of like a tipping point, and people's frustrations are coming to the fore because, as you mentioned, there is actually a range of things that motivate people, some more than others. And the biggest one is probably the mass immigration. It's one of the biggest problems that we face, and I think that's kind of top of the agenda for a lot of people, because there's so many effects that result from that. But as you said, though, digital IDs as well, and eventually they'll take us towards digital currency and social credit system, and some people are also awaken against that. But that's one of the things with Cumbria Action, is that we have a wide range of issues, a wide range of people with various concerns, but I guess the core tenet is people coming together and being proactive in their community. And I think that's one of the most effective things that people can do, because I know a lot of people, myself included, that get disillusionized with politics, especially at the top level. And it's whether it's Labour or Conservatives or Greens, it's nothing's ever going to change with any of them. But that's not to say that politics doesn't work or people can't have an effective change on their community. Because I think politics still can work at a local grassroots level. So whether it's getting independent MPs or getting our own people on the board, on councils, whether it be email or letter campaigns, demonstrations and protests. There's a lot that people can do to affect change in their community. But even if it's not on a kind of political activism sense, even looking back at the lockdowns, when everybody was staying indoors, everybody was wearing masks, but started bringing people together in Cumbria for the lockdowns, and we were having 50, 60, I think once we had 70 plus people together on the fells, just walking in a nice big group, no masks, no social distancing, nothing like that. And granted, even on the Cumbria Fells in the middle of nowhere, there were still people walking out with masks on, which was quite a comical sight to see. And we still had all sorts of, and like social distancing as well. Like we had one, I wouldn't say call her crazy, but she was very animated, and there was a large group of us out on the fells walking, just happy, no mask, anything like that. And she came up to us and she was telling us that this is illegal, this is against the law, there's more than 6 people here, and all that sort of nonsense. But I found it positive, though, the fact of just people coming together and not being isolated, getting out and just ignoring these illegal lockdowns. So I guess the point of that is that whether it be political activism through challenging councils and motions, things like that, or whether it be just bringing people together, and when they try and lock us down, we simply say no and we go down about our business. There's a lot of positive things people can do, and I think all stems from being informed, saying no, and just having the courage to stand up for your own rights and those of people around you.
It's interesting to think about, looking back at it and what people believed and acted on at that time. You know, if you had 7 people in your walking group, you all could have died of COVID, right? But 6 people was okay. The things that they were saying at the time were just, and I was living in Scotland, in Glasgow at the time, which I think had the strictest restrictions in anywhere in the UK, because Nicola Sturgeon was in charge and her constituency was in Glasgow, and she wanted to outdo Boris Johnson in terms of making it look like she was protecting people. But on that note, on local action, local councillors, I'd like to hear from both of you on this issue, because I think this is incredibly important, and it really gets to the heart of what we should be doing, is engaging with local councillors. So I'm in County Durham, as I think you might know, and we have a majority reform council here, overwhelming majority reform from the most recent election. So things are quite different here. We were the first county, this was over the summer, to repeal the net zero funding nonsense, because they realized that we had a lot of other priorities, for example, going to taking care of children with care needs and things where they decided to redirect the money. And I attended that council meeting when they made that vote, and it was interesting to watch how the decision happened, because you have there's some remaining Lib Dems and others that were there who were opposing this, saying that was ridiculous and that we needed to save the planet, and all the money needed to get funded, funneling back to the net zero scam. Meanwhile, we have children who need help and care and can't get it because there's no money. So one of the things that I think has been happening, and in my conversations with Brian Garish about this as well, who has extensive experience with watching and trying to engage with his council down in Plymouth for many years, it seems like, and I agree with Brian on this completely, was that basically we have some local councillors who do want to do the best that they can for their communities. And the problem is that there's the bigger systems that are at play. So you can call it the Uniparty, you can call it the machines of both the Tories and Labour, where their motivation is going to be to try to crush these newer people who might have come in through grassroots means. I know that that's the case with one of my councillors in my ward where I live. He's wonderful. He actually has helped me install security lights in my house because I've been followed home before by migrants and I felt really unsafe. And so he came in and tried to make my home safer for me. And that's true community. And he's the one who's, going to the council and trying to get these things done. I couldn't be more thankful for him being here to help those of us who live in this area and have similar concerns, honestly. But it's depending on who your counselors are, I think probably influences how you have to engage with them. So I'm very fortunate in the sense that I have someone I feel like is on our side and is one of us essentially. But I understand from just bits I've heard from the group, and when I was at your event a few weeks ago, is that that's not necessarily the case in Cumbria. So for you locally, what's going on in your council? Do you know the parties who's the majority party, or do you have one, and how does that influence what you need to be doing to work with them?
Well, we've got a predominantly left-leaning council across Cumberland, essentially. And like you say, there are some well-meaning and excellent councillors who are very much community-focused and like the issue that you defined yourself. If there's a local problem, they will redirect resources and attempt to help. But the overriding focus appears to be whatever the narrative from Westminster is, it is echoed here, which is fine. I know that there has to be a focus for government, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the needs of what this county needs. The needs of Cumbria are completely different to the needs of Durham, for instance. We've got a different economy, a different setup, and certainly very different people. And I'm sure since you've arrived in Britain, you've noticed that you can drive 10 miles and it's a different place completely. We are such a small, packed-in little island that every district, every community, every ward has its own needs. And some of those are lucky and do have councillors that give a damn, but the rest of them appear to be just here to bang the drum, but for the mainstream narrative that is accepted and is pushed and promoted by the media machine. There's lots of focus on exterior forces and what exterior people need and to the detriment of the local people. And the more we shine a light on these things with the likes of Cumbria Action and the activism that Brent's done previously, the more people I'm aware that people are not informed about what is happening, and people are completely unaware of what the decisions are being made by these elected officials, or in many cases unelected officials, who are making these huge swathing choices for people that, if they were actually publicly publicized and the public were fully informed, they would say no. And on that basis, that answers my own question. That is why they will not publicize these policies and bills, because they know that the public don't want them. So they have this clandestine, quiet, let's just quietly put this through and no one will notice. Well, in our recent activism, we've put them on notice, and that won't be accepted any longer. We will promote and expose everything that they're attempting to bring forward. Be that with attendance like we did last week, or just informing our membership. Word of mouth is a beautiful thing in these close-knit communities, and if you can light the fires of Gondor, they will go far. I can tell you that.
It was interesting to watch what happened in. I lived in Edinburgh before I moved here into County Durham, and I lived in the area of Edinburgh, which was, I think, kind of the test case for the 15-minute neighborhood, 15-minute city agenda. And they put up cameras and bus gates through one of the streets that was kind of a major thoroughfare for cars. And it's a very congested and crowded area because it's on the A8, which goes directly into the city. So you have to drive through it if you're coming from the west or from Glasgow. And the cameras that they had put up around the bus gates saying, cars can't drive through here at these times of day and you'll get fined if you do. Somebody, whoever it was, this was a couple of years ago, they were climbing up to the cameras and covering up the cameras or taking down the cameras at night when nobody was watching. And the council and the counselor who was in charge of all of this, who's now an MP, Scott Arthur, who I engaged with personally on Twitter at the time, was calling these people criminals for what they were doing, and look at this horrible criminal behavior, and they're awful people for interfering with our cameras. But then what ended up happening was they took down the cameras in the end, and they canceled the busgate plan. And then they came back to us and said, "Oh, look what we did. We listened to you. Please reelect us." We took down the cameras. And I always think of that as an example that personally I would not be physically able to climb a pole and cover a camera in the middle of the night. But whoever was doing that was able to do it. And it was just, to me, such a great example of when we talk about doing something, they literally did something. They covered the cameras and took them down. But I think that, in that case, because that was our area and that was the one that was being directly affected, and that was the thing that needed to happen, was the camera needed to go because we didn't want to get fined for driving down the streets. So that's just one example. But that, again, is a very local problem. That was the case where we lived. And so whether it's, whatever it is in your area is what we need to, and who is in charge and who's pushing it, because Scott Arthur, who was in charge of transportation for Edinburgh Council, is very into the agenda. So that was what had to be done, and it worked. It was successful. So it was great. Brent, what about you? And what kind of interactions have you had with local councils over the years since you've been doing this work for so long?
Well, in terms of engaging specifically with the council, that in its sense has been more of a recent development with Cumbria Action. I mean, during the Standing for Britain days, we back when Gerard Batten was leader of UKIP, we were working alongside political parties like that and independent news organisations and things like that to push things forward. So still kind of engaged with government, but it wasn't until I joined Cumbria Action that I got more involved in like local councils, as it were. Back in the day, it used to be more kind of higher up with connected, for example, Gerard Batten, people like Anne-Marie Waters, back in the height of For Britain and UKIP. But so there's kind of different avenues you can go, whether it's local councils, through political parties on both the national and local level. Although I do personally maintain that it's far more effective to work on a local level. And the thing about councillors as well, which I've come to realise, and kind of, you made a very good point before when you said about the cameras, and when the councillors came back to us, like, we've made these changes, like re-elect us, and kind of like following on from what Chris said, as well as about putting the council on notice. One thing I have noticed is that councillors fear losing their seat. That's one of the things that they kind of fear the most. So in terms of some positive kind of like inspiration for people, whether they think that, oh, should I really get involved, whatever, does anything really happen? Councillors do fear losing their seats, so get involved locally, put pressure on your councils, challenge their motions, put forward petitions and debates and things, and you can actually get things changed at a local level, even if the councillors don't actually support what you want to get done. That fear of losing their seat, they will listen to people if they find a lot of resistance to these motions that they're putting forward.
So it's I think though it does make a difference in who is in charge and who is, is it, if it is Labour or Tory or Lib Dem or the Greens, you're going to be facing different challenges, I think, compared to those who might be coming from, let's say, I'll say Reform just because I'm here in Durham, but it seems to me that, where their loyalties lie is an interesting question, because if they're working on behalf of and with the political machines that are driving most of them, it's going to be, I would imagine, much more difficult to deal with them because they've already decided what they're going to do. And in my experience, at least when I was still in Edinburgh, that they do what they want and then they ask you what you think about it. So there were so many times when I received, community consultations, for example, online survey forms and things that I went and filled out. So they implemented the 15-minute city, and then they sent out a consultation asking us what we think about having a 15-minute city put in. So I would go fill it out, but I'd say, well, you've already done it anyway, so I don't know why you're asking us, but I'll tell you what I think. And this has been true. I've seen this at a national level as well with things like CBDCs. Having been in the academic system, I had colleagues who were direct advisors to the government on CBDC and probably are still doing it. I'm sure they are. These things are already happening in the background. And as you both have kind of, alluded to, these things happen before we know about them, and then they become made available. I was just in Darlington last night for another event, and I learned last night that in Darlington they're concerned because Amazon is going to be using Darlington as a trial for drones, drone delivery for Amazon. And so that's one of the things where that's a very local thing, which obviously, Jeff Bezos is going to want to make probably all over the world if he can have drones flying all over the world. So that, and are those drones going to have cameras? Yes, I'm sure they are. Are they going to have, microphones? Yes, most likely. So then we'll be sold the convenience of, oh, look, it's going to be so quick and easy that you'll have your stuff delivered from Amazon by drone. You don't have to wait for a delivery driver, and it'll be faster and it'll be great and convenient. And that's assuming that that people are even paying attention or even thinking about how things are coming around. We see things out here in a sort of rural county Durham of planes that are flying over constantly. And, what are these planes doing? These are not commercial flights. These are not people flying to Spain for holidays. We don't know what they are. We can't answer that for sure. But, people just need to continue to be aware and ask questions about what's going on. Why are those things up there? What are they doing? Are they military? Are they training for something? Where are they based from? Where are they going to? Why are they flying here? And that's what we need to be always staying in contact, I think, with counselors and putting the pressure on them to do the work. And the ones that are, I think, trying to work in our best interest, we need to be friends with them, but we also need to make sure, as you've said, that the ones that are not working in our best interest, that they need to know that we're watching and that we are not pleased with things that might be occurring. And if they want to keep their seats, they're going to have to respond. So I think that's a really important point that you made there. And I think it's overlooked by people that they just kind of accept, well, this is what's happening. We don't like it. We might complain to one another. We might, we might tell our friends what we think, but we don't talk to anyone who is actually responsible for putting these things in place that we don't want. And I think that's a really important thing that you two are doing, because I get asked constantly from people, well, what can I do? It's too much. It's too big. It is. It's big. But working locally, as you guys are doing, I think, and we're seeing you're seeing the response from it, that there are people out there that are joining in, and we just need to keep growing that. So, I want to kind of start to wrap up here, but I want to say that you guys have both been doing just really amazing things. It doesn't have to be on a global scale. You don't have to go down to Westminster and do anything huge. You can do things where you are, and that's the most important things, because of some of these examples that we've all shared, that we all have local things. But the point is that those local things that they're doing contribute to the global agenda that we're all terrified of, or not terrified of, but that we know needs to stop. And a bit of hope that I think that I would like to give to people as well is that they're not where they want to be with all of this. If you look at the Agenda 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is what a lot of this goes down to, that, we cover extensively on UK Column. And there's a film by Oracle Films called About the Agenda, which is I highly recommend people watch. And that's one thing, if you want to get people to see what's going on, send them the link to that film. I think it's available for free on YouTube. That all of these little things are examples of how they're putting Agenda 2030 into place, that 15-minute cities is not about everything being close and convenient. It's about, taking away the freedom to drive your car and go where you want and do what you want to do. I frequently say the vaccine passports were a test case for the sort of the digital ID system that they want to put in. And the amount of money, it was 200 million pounds, they said, what was the figure they gave out for how much it cost to put in this track and trace app in 2020. I'm not sure if that figure is accurate, or, was that money actually sent somewhere else? I don't know. But, when we talk about what we can do locally, it's even just within yourself. You don't even have to say anything to anybody because a lot of people have jobs and mortgages that they have to protect, and they can't say things. But, when we were doing track and trace, I didn't say anything when I started to go back out to eat with friends who were still aligning with the system. So I remember, we're going to sit down and have a cup of coffee in a cafe. We got to track and trace and put in all of our details. So they would get into their app and put all of their information in, and I was just pretending. I picked up my phone. I didn't even say anything to my friends. I was just like checking emails. It's just something to make them think and not even get into it at the time, because I was still trying to. I didn't do any of it, but I also was not. My life wasn't in a position at that time where I thought I was able to, because I was an academic and had all these responsibilities and trying to fit into the system. And obviously it didn't work. I got pushed out anyway, and I'm much happier now. But that's whatever it is. You don't even have to say anything. Start with using cash when you pay for something, and then figure out what it is that you can do, because we can't do everything. Just find one thing and do it, and start there. And this is the message that I want to leave people with. And you guys are amazing leaders in your area and what you're doing. And I find you so incredibly inspirational with the work that you're doing. But what's one of the things that I want to end this year with is inspiring people to go forth as we go into Christmas period and into 2026 with the idea that you can do something. You just have to do something small. You can just attend a rally on a Saturday that we all are involved in. You can do something. And that's what I want to leave you with. Yeah.
If I was going to say, if that's something that you're interested in doing, if any of your viewers out there are thinking, I think I want to do more, then just follow the example that I'd set. Have a look around, see what groups are available to you. If there isn't one, create one. Just take that little step, because it's been remarkably humbling to see the amount of support that we've had. On our first demo, we had 500 people turn up. I must admit, when I first set it up, I was feeling a little nervous that I'm going to be stood there with me and two others, holding flags, kind of feeling a little bit silly. But the support is there, and if you just take that chance in your local area and create something, I guarantee, it's the old thing, if they build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And that will grow exponentially, and you will see immediate support from your local community. And what these people in power hate the most is all of us getting together, talking amongst ourselves and formulating plans to bring power back to where it belongs, the normal folk, the normal people that are the backbone of the country. So if you're considering activism, do it. That's my message.
Yeah, I was, because you made a very good point. Posed a very good question when you were just saying, like, what can I do? And that's a question that a lot of people will ask themselves, and it might cause people to put them off getting involved if they think they can't do anything. But I know you said we were going to be wrapping up soon. Do I have time to mention one other thing about something positive people could do?
Of course. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, because in terms of not only the activism that we've already discussed, but there is something else that people can do on a personal level to take back control of their bodily autonomy. So in 2020, in 2023, I think it was October then, I had to have life-saving surgery to have about 1 meter of my intestines removed. But because I have a complete aversion to having any kind of blood transfusions or any blood products, because they don't screen it for whether it's come from somebody that's had the jab or not. And leading up to the surgery, I was told that they cannot guarantee that they won't give me blood products to save my life if needed to. But I feel so strongly that doesn't matter what the consequences is, I won't have any compromising principles like that. So I actually, they did actually pull my life-saving surgery 30 minutes before going under the knife because of my various things about an advance directive and because I wouldn't wear a mask or anything like that. But there's a document called an advance directive. It's a legal document. And while I didn't create the notion of an advance directive, there wasn't anything like a template or anything for people of my points of view about refusing COVID tests and masks and also refusing blood transfusions. So what I actually did is I've created wrote my own advance directive that I submitted to my surgical team. They actually had their Newcastle Hospital's own legal team scrutinised it, couldn't find any fault with it. So my second surgery date went ahead fine. But so an advance directive, it's similar to kind of power of attorney in the case of sort of cementing your rights and what your views are. And what I've done with mine is I've removed all my personal information and created like a template. Which I'm happy to share. I've already shared it with people, and if I'm able to, for example, share it with UK Column News for other people to utilise. And it's a very simple process that people need to do. All they need to do is fill in their personal details, and providing they don't want any other health concerns added to the advance directive, which I'm happy to help people with, obviously with their consent when we're talking about medical information. But I imagine a lot of people would be happy to use my my template as is, because it covers things like blood transfusions, COVID tests, even things like organ donations, stuff like that. And what you'll do is it basically sets out your views and what you do not consent to, what you withdraw your consent from. And you also nominate a healthcare proxy that can speak on your behalf. Say if you're under the knife or whatever, you've got somebody that can speak on your behalf. And these advance directives, it's a legal document, it's recognised by the medical institution, and it's just a way to take back your own bodily autonomy and your own control. And even after my surgery, when I spoke to the surgeon on the phone, he thanked me for opening his eyes regarding consent by also having my discharge letter. The last paragraph of my discharge letter, it's actually mentioned in writing that not only did I open his eyes regarding consent, but in Newcastle Hospital, they actually made policy changes after my case. And I'm just one person. So if thousands of people put in their own advance directives in place, and a lot of people I know have put off surgery and have been very worried about going into hospital because they're worried about masks, vaccines and blood transfusions, things like that. An advance directive is something that they can actually have in place, and it's to answer that question as well about, what can I do? That's actually something everybody can do, is put their own advance directive in place. And I know I've been a bit brief as we're wrapping up, but basically, if it would be okay with you in UK Column, I'm happy to provide you with a copy of my template, and also I'm happy as well if anybody has any concerns or wants any amendments made to an advance directive and they want me to do that for them. I'm happy to volunteer my time to help anybody in that same situation. So yeah, please, if people want to take back their own bodily autonomy, an advance directive can do that, and I'm happy to help people to basically do that.
No, that's great. We can provide that. We always put a short write-up with our interviews, but for anyone who's listening on any other platform, that is only available on ukcolumn.org. So if you listen on YouTube, you won't be able to see this information, but if you go to find the interview on our UK Column website, then we can link to and give examples and everything that you've just discussed. But that's where everyone, just for listeners that might be listening in on a podcast or YouTube or Facebook, wherever they're listening, you have to come to our website for that, but we can certainly provide that, of course. No problem. Are there any final things, any last minute thoughts that we haven't talked about that either one of you want to say? Chris, I'll start with you. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Like I say, well, I've probably butted in and said my final piece already, just about getting out there, taking that first step. It's key. And if Cumbria Action's anything to go by, we're heading for the 6,000 mark and growing.
That's great.
And if we had this in towns and cities across the land, can you imagine the power we'd have behind it? We've created headlines from our little group just up in Cumbria. I mean, we've been on the across the BBC, causing mayhem for the local councillors with all this sanctuary city stuff. Just a group of like-minded citizens can come together and actually really create waves for these people. So don't be thinking I'm just sat here on my own. What possible impact could I have? You've no idea the waves that one person can create from just taking that first chance and that first opportunity. So if that's my overriding message to your viewers and your listeners, if you're considering it, do it. It will bring change, and it will bring some real positivity and direction to the local community, which is currently rudderless and needs help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And Brent, any other final thoughts from you?
Yeah, just a final thought from me is that nothing is more powerful than an informed populace. So regardless of what comes next in the agenda and what gets thrown at us, and whatever you see on the news, I just encourage people to look at the facts, do their own research. Don't just listen to the narrative just because somebody on the BBC tells you it. Inform yourself, become powerful, and with that is community. So there'll be other people in your community. Maybe somebody just down the road feels exactly the same as you. So reach out, build up a network, build up a community, and basically just understand that your voice is powerful, and that with the community that we're building, nobody's going to feel alone going forward, and every single one of us is powerful.
Thank you so much, Brent and Chris. It's been a great discussion. Really been a pleasure speaking with you today. Again, this is Diane Rasmussen with UK Column, and thanks everyone for watching, and we appreciate your support.